Welcome, everyone. I'm honored to have a really special guest today. I've been following her and her newsletter for years, and she's a real expert on radiation, 5G, energy thieves. And so the title of our interview today is going to be Energy Thieves, Radiation and Radiation Protection. And her name is Debra Greene. Welcome, Debra.
Aloha, Carol. Thank you. It's very nice to be here.
It's so good to see you, like sort of person.
Yeah, I know. I'm a huge fan of your work as well.
So to give you a little bio on Debra, she's an innovator in energy medicine for over 20 years, and she combines the best of ancient wisdom with modern science in writing, private practice, lectures, online programs. She's a community organizer and educator who founded Safe Tech Hawaii. Oh, that's a great one. To stop the proliferation of wireless technology in the Hawaiian Islands and advocate for safe technology. And she's written this groundbreaking book, Endless Energy, The Essential Guide to Energy Health, which is really great. And her online, her website is www.yourenergymatters.com. So Debra, to start this off, in your bio, I saw that you worked closely with Sayer G and who was the other one?
Josh Del Sol. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to do that. That was like one of the initial 5G summits, right?
It's absolutely true. Yes, it was an international summit. It was, really groundbreaking at the time, helping people raise awareness about the dangers of 5G. And it was an honor and a privilege to work with those guys, and also to be one of the presenters in that summit.
Well, what was so amazing is how the powers that be went after Sayer. I mean, I had followed his green medicine. He had that great database for anything you had, and they just went after him because of his work presenting all of these things. So yeah, he and Mercola.
Yep.
So you want to share some of your 5G wisdom with us today? And I know you've got lots of different tools and ideas. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to share about 5G and wireless radiation in general, because it is a big energy thief. Various aspects of it. It definitely impacts our etheric body, or our vital body, which of course is our main source of vitality, of vital life force energy, in the human organism and any living organisms as well. So I think one of the most important things to know at this point about 5G is that 5G is actually a marketing term. And that means that 5G can mean whatever big telecom wants it to mean, and they keep changing the meaning. And they're actually infighting with each other about what 5G really is. So there is no clear or agreed upon definition of 5G, of what it is. And some companies, some telecom companies are using the lower part of the allowable spectrum and calling that 5G. And other companies are using the higher millimeter wave, higher frequency part of the spectrum and calling that 5G. And so it's just extremely confusing. When 5G, sort of first arrived in commercial use, which was relatively recently, it was pretty much understood to refer to millimeter wave frequencies, and which are delivered in what are called 5G small cells or small cell infrastructure. But that has since changed. And they've discovered a lot of problems with using those millimeter waves, which, by the way, have never before in the history of humanity, that part of the spectrum, millimeter wave frequencies, have never before been used for commercial use. They've only ever been used by the military for crowd control.
Well,
So
this is, this just like clears up something for me, because I was looking at the different frequencies and they were always different. And I didn't know what that was about, whether they were just using whatever they wanted. But now, yeah.
yeah, and pretty much it has come to that, because when it started, it was going to be, oh, all these millimeter waves and 5G small cells everywhere. And then they started running into problems. And the problems happened because it turns out that millimeter wave frequencies are pretty fragile. They don't travel very far without getting impeded. And they get impeded by really commonplace things like trees with leaves and buildings and people and all kinds of things. And so because they started running into these problems where, oh my gosh, we can't really use these millimeter wave frequencies easily because they get blocked. Mm-hmm. And by, really common things, as I just said. And so then it started changing into, well, we've promised 5G, so let's start using, the lower part of the spectrum, which is really beefed up 4G, but they're calling it 5G. And anyway, it's kind of a big mess right now.
So when AT&T, my router went down or something, and they were here, and then it said, I was paying for 5G. It said that's what, and he said, well, there's 2G and 5G. He said, just do the 2G. It works just as well.
Well, and I'm really glad
you said, but I'm paying for the 5G. On my bill, it said, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes, and I'm very glad you brought that up, Carol, because that's a really important point. So sometimes on our computer, because of the router, or sometimes on the cell phone, when your phone or your computer or cable box are searching for a Wi-Fi connection, 5G will pop up. But that is not the 5G that we're talking about today. The 5G that we're talking about today refers to 5th generation wireless infrastructure, wireless technology. And the 5G that shows up on your phone or your computer when it's searching for Wi-Fi stands for 5 gigahertz.
Oh, wow.
Which is a completely different thing, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm really glad we get to clear this up. And it used to be, as you pointed out, that Wi-Fi operated mostly in 2.4 gigahertz. And then they recently added 5 gigahertz. And instead of writing out, the gigahertz symbol, they just put 5G. And so people get very confused when they see that and like, oh my God, I have 5G on my computer and 5G on my phone and I don't want that. But please keep in mind, that's a completely different thing.
I keep going out and looking because they would tell you that you go out and see whether your energy is coming in digital or it was the old analog, to see if you really, everybody, that's really good. You're clearing that up because nobody understood that. Yeah.
That's right. And I mean, I'm not saying that, 2.4G Wi-Fi or 5G Wi-Fi is safe. Not saying that at all.
Yeah.
Any kind of wireless radiation is, a concern for sure. But I'm just saying that, the 5G as a Wi-Fi option, it's not what we're talking about with 5th generation. So with 5th generation technology, like when cell phones were first, invented or, came onto the commercial market, they basically operated on 1G, which was the first generation of like the functionality of the phone. And, basically you could make a phone call and that was it. And cell phones were about the size of a shoebox.
Right.
And then, then they advanced and we went to 2G, which is, the 2nd generation. And then you got a little bit more functionality. And then when 3G came out, it grew exponentially because it went from being able to make a phone call to then adding like text messaging and so forth. And then when 4G came out, we got the capacity to actually live stream like video on your phone and stuff like that. So every time there's a new generation, there's more functionality that's added to the cell phone. And so with 5G, they're saying, oh, faster and, faster Wi-Fi connections and lower latency, which means lower lag time. Because sometimes if you're watching a video or something on your phone, there can be a little delay, a little glitch.
Yeah, start circling.
Yeah. And they're saying with 5G, that's never going to happen. It's faster and it's lower latency and so forth. And, so 5G is like all the rage. Everybody wants to have 5G. Well, not everybody, thankfully. But 5G is really not about faster downloads and lower latency. 5G is really about ushering in artificial intelligence, robotics, the Internet of Things, IoT, which is really the Internet of everything, where everything in existence, and I mean everything in existence.
This is like coming in before the Great Reset.
So everything in existence, like, everything outside of your body, all of your devices and appliances and everything else, and even inside your body will be chipped and, able to transmit and emit data and track everything that's going on. And that's really what 5G is about. So it's important to keep that in mind because, of course, in the marketing, they're just, talking about, oh, your phone's going to work so much better, faster, downloads and whatever. But that's not really what 5G is about.
It's not really about convenience.
Well, it is about convenience.
No, but I mean,
the fact is that it surveils us and
surveils convenience
and also emits, very harmful toxic radiation along the way. And one of the things that makes 5G more toxic and more harmful is that it brings the infrastructure, it brings the antennas much closer to us, to where we live and sleep and eat and work and play, as opposed to 4G, where most of the 4G towers, they're either out in the countryside, or else if they're in cities, they're up on the top of buildings and so forth. But with 5G small cells and the millimeter waves, we have to have way more of them because the waves don't travel as far as easily and because they get impeded. And so this brings the infrastructure much closer together. It saturates us with these, antennas, and it also it brings them into residential neighborhoods and inside office buildings and apartment buildings and things like that, where in the past we've never had, these kind of small cell antennas.
Well, during the pandemic, because LA is one of the chosen cities to launch, they were just like night and day putting up towers everywhere. Everything. I mean, it was just like a frenzy, doing all the schools. People were taking pictures of them they were really working with it. Yeah. Yeah.
That happened in many locations. Yeah, they really were taking advantage of the fact that there was no traffic, nobody was outside. And so they could just, rush in and erect all of this infrastructure. Sadly, but yes.
We were hiking over in Mount Washington, which is really populated parts of it. And there was this tower, and then it had big warning signs on it. Do not come near, it was one of those new 5G with those antennas. Do not come near, do not touch. And it was 20 feet from a home. And so I don't know how they got permission to do it. Just was outrageous.
Yeah, I mean, these things are unfortunately operating, legally, and they're not illegal. They're operating within the law. The problem is that the laws that govern, towers and antennas are extremely in favor of the industry. And that happens because in the United States, the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, which is the agency that is tasked with protecting us and setting these regulations, the FCC has been completely overtaken and captured by industry that it's supposed to be regulating. And so we're not being protected at all. And that is very, very tragic.
Right.
And scary. And it's why people really in this, regard have to take matters into their own hands, because you cannot, trust that, oh, well, because I can buy the cell phone, it means that it's safe. It means that it's been fully tested and researched, and, I can hold it next to my brain and talk for hours. I can, give it to my children. And those are really things that should not happen. It's kind of like, I don't know how old you are, Carol, but like when I was growing up, everybody was smoking cigarettes.
Exactly.
Cigarette smoking was
there were ads on everything. I know everyone pushing it. Yeah.
And ads with physicians, doctors, recommending that people smoke in the airplanes. People were allowed to smoke in the airplanes. There was ashtrays in every single armrest on the airplane seats, right?
We can thank Edward Bernays, Freud's cousin, for that, because he's the one who launched the whole thing from propaganda to PR, and cigarettes was his first mission.
Yes, well, obviously
successful.
Unfortunately successful. And I can remember my best friend's mother. She was told by her medical doctor, to smoke cigarettes during her pregnancy with my best friend, because her doctor told her that it would help her with the pregnancy. And we look at that now and we think that is the craziest, almost most criminal thing that you could imagine, because now we know that smoking is extremely harmful and that you should never smoke when you're pregnant, or, all of this. Well, it's very similar to where we are now with cell phones and wireless radiation. We are going to look back on this day and age and we are going to say, oh my God, can you imagine? People used to hold cell phones next to their brain. We're going to look at this as the most outrageous thing ever, because there is plenty of research to show that wireless radiation from cell phones, from Wi-Fi, from Bluetooth, Fitbit, smart watches, smart whatever, that is extremely harmful to our health. It is toxic. And the problem is that, as you mentioned earlier, how successful big tobacco was. Well, big telecom is following the tobacco playbook. Step by step, they're following that playbook. They have created a product that they know is harmful. They know it. And yet they are doing their best to hide the research, to discredit the researchers who are, coming out and saying this is harmful. They're pouring on the propaganda to the public to try to convince them that your safety depends on having a cell phone.
And they also are making it so cool, and you needed the latest.
Absolutely.
Just like the cigarettes, right? Yeah.
Exactly. You have to have it, and you have to have the latest and the greatest. And they're also, big telecom has even added an additional step, and that is taking over the regulatory agencies. Tobacco wasn't so good at that. They hadn't really refined that one. But big telecom is just masterful at taking over the regulatory agencies that are supposed to be protecting us.
Wow.
And so we're basically without protection.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's only a matter of time because the truth always comes out eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And it will. And, you know, people are starting to become more aware. You know, people are starting to feel the effects. People are starting to, you know, develop electrosensitivity, you know, where they're getting symptoms that are connected with overexposure to wireless radiation.
I've had that with feng shui clients who've had to move way out in forests and do all of this. Yeah. I mean, it's so real.
It is very real. And, you know, I've been involved in this issue for over 10 years. And I myself recently became electrosensitive. I was not for many years, but it recently happened to me. And it was because I was living in a condominium complex. And inside my unit, of course, I did not use Wi-Fi ever. I never use Wi-Fi. And I had my computer, you know, with Ethernet hardwired with the safer, faster, more secure Ethernet. And I don't use my cell phone. I use a good old-fashioned corded landline.
You can't get them in LA anymore because AT&T didn't repair the landlines.
That is tragic.
It is.
Perhaps there are other companies
No,
that you
there's only AT&T for all of this area, Hollywood, all of that, because I already had the phone company out, and they're not repair. If the landlines break, they're not repairing and putting any new ones in.
That is very sad. And that's even more reason why everybody should get a landline right now. Because the more people who get landlines, the more they will try to preserve and sustain and support that infrastructure. But you don't need a telephone company to have a landline, Carol. You can go through a cable company, and that's what I have.
Oh, okay.
You know, I have my corded landline through my cable company.
Oh, okay.
Which goes through coaxial cable, so it's hardwired.
Right.
And what I do is I forward my cell phone to my landline. So if somebody calls me on my cell phone, it just rings right at my landline.
Okay.
And it's completely seamless, and nobody knows the difference. You know, the caller doesn't know, you know, whether I'm answering on my landline or my cell phone. So that's a very easy thing that you can do.
Well, I'm going to do it this week. Okay.
Good. To make your space much safer.
Right.
And I get my text messages through my computer. So I can still text, you know, but it goes through the computer. That's because I have an Apple phone and an Apple computer. And so that allows for that. And then, of course, you know, I get the email through my computer. But what happened when I was living in the condo complex, despite all of my safety measures, you know, that I have in place, I couldn't control what my neighbors were doing. And when I first moved into that unit, I tested the space with my Safe and Sound Pro 2 meter, which is a meter that I recommend if anyone, you know, watching is interested in this. This is a very good meter to read the microwave frequencies that are produced and utilized by cell phones, Wi-Fi, and so forth. And yes, these are frequencies in the microwave range.
Wow.
And so the Safe and Sound Pro 2 it's a very easy meter to use. It's certified for accuracy. By the way, I don't work for them or anything. I'm just sharing information here.
Just have to find one, right?
I sound like a commercial, but I'm not. But anyway, I do recommend this meter. And it's you know, it's relatively affordable as far as meters go. You know, it's probably like it's under $400. So anyway, I tested the space in the condo before I moved in there, and it was okay. I mean, it was low enough that I felt, safe to move in there. And I lived there for a few years, and I would periodically test because things can change.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to get symptoms. And my symptoms were insomnia, which is a very common symptom connected with, electrosensitivity. I
Mm-hmm.
started to get headaches. I started to get extremely irritable, which was not fun at all. And I also had this symptom where I would hear this noise inside my head. The noise was not being produced out here. The noise
So it
was
wasn't
inside my head.
tinnitus.
It was not tinnitus, which is sometimes referred to as ringing in the ears.
Right.
This was a very different sound that I can only describe as the sound of my brain being fried. That's what it sounded like to me.
Wow.
And then I took out my meter and I tested, and suddenly the levels had gone off the charts.
Oh.
And when I saw that on the meter, I just happened to remember that there was a technician at my neighbor's house like the day before. And I sort of just noticed it and didn't think much about it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I found out later that everyone in the condo complex on the same day got what are called Roku boxes for their televisions. And I don't own a television. I haven't owned a television for decades,
Yeah.
but people now have smart televisions. They have smart TVs. And apparently our condominium complex had renegotiated the contract and to include these Roku boxes for their smart TVs, and everyone got one on the same day. And that's what pushed me over the edge.
Wow.
And then I was determined to stay. And so I bought shielding and tried to shield my space, which, by the way, I do not recommend anyone do shielding unless you really know what you're doing, because you can end up doing more harm than good if you install EMF shielding and you don't know what you're doing. I really have to stress that point, because I notice now that they're, like on Amazon, they're selling EMF shielding. So anybody
Right. I mean, there's EMF paint, there's the
exactly
wall covers. Yeah.
And so people can just buy it and put it up, but that's actually not a good idea unless you really know what you're doing, because
I want to do a little commercial here for someone. EMF or less in New York is like this incredible company that's been around like 30 years, 40, and you can call them, they talk to you, they go over what you need. I mean, they're really, if you're looking for it, they're a great company for products.
Yes, and it's actually called lessemf.com.
Less EMF, yes.
Right. And but what I'm saying is
EMF for less, that was a good one. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, right. Buy your EMFs now. Get them for less. They're on sale now. It's lessemf.com. But anyway, what I mean when I say unless somebody really knows what they're doing, I mean you need to have someone who you can hire to come into your space.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And advise you on putting up your shielding or using your shielding paint or whatever else you're doing, because otherwise you can end up doing more harm than good. So, in my opinion, do not try doing shielding on your own. Okay. But at any rate, I knew what I was doing. I mean, I've been involved in this for years. And so I put up the shielding, and it helped to a certain extent. But then when I retested, I was able to tell that I had effectively blocked the radiation coming through the walls, but that I had radiation coming up through the floor.
Wow.
Because I was on the second floor. And so you cannot easily shield a floor. Shielding a floor is extremely difficult, expensive, and complex. And that's when I realized I had to move. And so I did. And I thought that as soon as I got out of that space that I would just immediately feel better.
Yeah.
Not so. It took several months, Carol. It took
Wow.
several months for my health to return. And
Mhm.
so I'm just sharing all of this in hopes that, people can be aware of what some of the symptoms are, and
Mhm.
also, just to manage expectations.
Yeah.
Because if you do change locations or whatever, and you don't instantly, feel better, don't despair. It does
Mhm.
take some time for your system to reset.
I did an interview with Alana Moore. I've like followed her Geomantica magazine for years. And she's moved to Ireland from Australia now. She did the Towers of Power. She had to do the whole interview in netting because she's so sensitive to all the electromagnetic
Yes.
fields.
And more
And she
more
was wearing
people.
long underwear. Yeah.
Yeah. More and more people are experiencing this.
Mm-hmm.
And it is because, it's a stressor. It's a harmful toxin. And at some point, the body reaches a level where it's like, no, I can't take this anymore. And you can get all kinds of interesting symptoms. Like, I mean, I know several people recently who, when they hold their cell phone in their hand starts burning, like a burning sensation.
Wow.
And one of my clients, even the spot on her hand developed, and it looked as though she had held her hand over an open flame. Her skin became blackened as if
Wow.
it had actually been burned. And of course, she was never exposed to anything like that. It was all coming, from holding the phone. Some people get electrical kinds of sensations, shooting,
Mm-hmm.
up their arm and so forth. So, and then the sound in the head thing. Some people get rashes
Mm-hmm.
and skin issues, headaches, insomnia. Those are big ones, pretty
Mm-hmm.
common ones. And then, like the nervous system activation, like anxiety, just feeling
Mm-hmm.
like you're constantly, on edge, wound up.
Mm-hmm.
That's another symptom of electrosensitivity. And in a way, it's kind of sad that it's called electrosensitivity, or sometimes even called electrohypersensitivity, because it makes it
Mm-hmm.
sound like there's something kind of weird or wrong with
Right.
these people who have it.
Mm-hmm.
Really what it is it's microwave sickness. That's what it is. People are getting sick from being exposed to microwaves.
When I was do feng shui, I used to I have to do this again. I'd get a fluorescent tube and then I would go to their house in front of their microwave and just put the tube and it would light up. Just standing there in front of the microwave because they all leak.
They leak. It is
Mm-hmm.
so true. And I mean, if you're using a microwave oven, one, which I hope you're not, but if you do use a microwave oven, if your microwave oven is more than 1 year old, chances are that it is leaking microwaves.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not good.
And the
And
food's just not healthy when it's microwaved anyhow,
this is true. This is true because microwaving destroys the etheric energy, the prana, the
Mm-hmm.
vital energy in whatever it is that you're cooking. And
Mm-hmm.
so, get yourself a little toaster oven or a convection oven. They work just
Right.
fine,
Mm-hmm.
and they're very safe. And anyway, all these little things that we can do to help make ourselves safer.
Mm-hmm.
Can I talk about another safety thing?
Sure.
While we're
As many as we can get.
okay, yay. Well, sometimes, in fact, frequently people ask me, Deborah, what can I do to be safer? I don't
Mhm.
want to give up my cell phone. And sometimes people can't afford to have, a cell phone plus a landline.
Mhm.
And sometimes people also say, what can I do to help combat, to help fight against all of these towers and antennas? Nobody wants to have towers and antennas next to them.
Yeah.
And the answer to both of those happens to be the same thing.
Okay.
And that is the most radical thing that you can do to protect yourself and to prevent the proliferation of towers and antennas is to put your phone in airplane mode.
Mm.
Very simple thing to do.
Mhm.
And I say that it's radical because when you put your phone in airplane mode, it prevents your phone from constantly pinging and interacting with the towers and antennas. And if many people do that, including you, then telecom does not have a reason to keep erecting more and more towers and antennas because there's not a need. And they are, in fact, required by law. They do not have many requirements governing them, but one of them is that they have to prove that there's a need for another, tower or antenna. And so that's why I say this, it's the most radical thing you can do to stop this proliferation is to put your phone in airplane mode. And you can do an amazing amount of things on your phone, even when it's in airplane mode. I mean, you can go through your if you have your pictures, your photos on your phone, you can sort through your photos, you can use your camera, you can take pictures, you can do videos. If you have your music on your phone, you can listen to your music. You can use the alarm, you can use the clock function. There's just a lot of things that you can do with your phone, a lot of apps that you can use even when it's in airplane mode. If somebody calls you when you're in airplane mode, it will go to voicemail. And if they text message you, it will simply be, on your phone. And so then what I do is, I mean, like right now, for example, I'm in a Zoom call with you. I don't need my phone going. It's not like I'm going to answer the phone. So my phone is in airplane mode. And, periodically, if I want, I can just quickly take it out of airplane mode. I can look and see what kind of messages I have, do whatever I need to do, and then put it back in airplane mode. That's the best way to use your phone. And it's also the safest way to use your phone because it cuts the radiation exponentially.
Well, that's just great. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so easy. And I mean, if you're carrying your phone around with you, put it in airplane mode because, you don't need to have it active all the time. Put it in airplane mode at night. Or better yet, turn it off at night.
Yeah.
Some people are like, well, I have to use my alarm. You can use your alarm in airplane mode.
I turn it off. So this is a better option. Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah. Turning it off is the best option at night. But for people who don't want to do that, please put it in airplane mode at least.
But I love this airplane mode. That's great.
Yes. And so that's a really, big safety tip. Yeah. And another safety tip is to keep the phone off of your body as much as possible. So that means, please, women, don't store the phone in your bra. And there's actually research showing that women who store their phone in their bra can end up with a tumor right exactly where they had been storing the phone. It's very sad. Guys have a tendency to store the phone in, the front pants pocket right next to the family jewels. Bad idea as well. Hello, testicular cancer. There's a lot of evidence of lowered sperm counts in young men these days, which is a very new thing. And, research that shows that it's correlated with, wireless radiation. Another very common thing is for people to carry their phone in their back pants pocket. And what we're finding now is colon cancer in very young people, Carol.
Wow.
And I mean, you and I probably know that in our generation, colon cancer never happened with young people.
No.
Colon cancer was an older person's cancer exclusively, not anymore. That's what has changed. People carry...
I kind of sometimes, just in my little conspiracy things, that think the whole thing of the kids with this, the boys with that, it's almost like a depopulation tool that is out there. Do you know what I mean? Because they're all doing it when you're seeing the kids at school. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think they want to depopulate though.
No, I'm just saying, it's just going, why? Yeah.
Yeah. And So anyway, keep the phone off your body as much as possible. Do not store a live cell phone, as we said, in the bra, in the pants pockets. Keep it in a purse, keep it in a man bag, keep it in a briefcase, keep it in a knapsack, keep it off of your body. And if you're at your desk or you're driving or you're at home, put it on the desk, on the table, on the whatever. Just get it as far away from you as you possibly can. If you're using the phone, use speaker mode, because again, you do not want to hold a cell phone next to your brain. You do not want to do that. I mean, the research on that is pretty definitive.
Right.
Even research that was done by the National Institutes of Health toxicology program.
And a lot of these are way back where they just show where the brain just heats up with it. Yeah.
Exactly true. And so it's this is not a safe device, and you need to understand it that way and keep it away from you as much as possible. And certainly do not give an active cell phone to a child. And especially not a baby. I mean, sometimes I'll be in like the grocery store or something, and I'll see a little tiny baby in a stroller, and they've got a phone going. And I just want to, it's all I can do to contain myself and not walk up to the parent and say, excuse me, would you put a lit cigarette in your baby's mouth? Oh my God, no, I would never do that. Well, guess what? This is a carcinogen. This is a cancer-causing device. And you're exposing your child and your baby to this, and the research is also quite conclusive on that. Children are much more susceptible, much more vulnerable, much more affected by this type of radiation. So it doesn't mean it's safe for adults, believe me, but it's worse for kids. And can I talk about this little?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I feel like I'm just rattling on, Carol.
No, we want to get as much as we can.
So
we're all victims in this.
It is so true, sadly true. One of the things you can do if you want to use your phone more safely is you can use a headset like this. This is a specialized headset. And the difference between this headset and, for example, the one that I'm using here, which, by the way, I'm not using Wi-Fi on my Zoom, okay? So people sometimes go, Debra, why are you using that wired headset? My computer is hardwired with Ethernet. There is no Wi-Fi going here. So my computer is not emitting wireless radiation. So this headset, which is a common headset that people use, this one that I'm holding in my hand is different than that. And the difference you can see is there's the base wire, but then when this headset gets close to the earbuds, it has this hollow tube. It's a hollow tube like a doctor's stethoscope. And what happens is when you use this headset, the radiation travels up through the copper wire, as it will do with any headset. But when it reaches the hollow tube, stops the radiation. So this is a radiation blocking headset. And just like a doctor can hear through a hollow tube stethoscope, you can still hear on your calls. You can hear just fine with these. But this is a safer way of using your phone if you want to keep using a cell phone, and you use a headset because that keeps the phone itself away from you. This one has a really nice long cord on it, so that I can have my phone way over there, and then the radiation does travel up the copper wire, but then again, it gets blocked by the hollow tubes here.
Now, are these readily available, or where?
Yes. This particular brand, and again, I don't work for these people. I'm not an affiliate. I'm not making any money. This particular brand is called Atmosure, and I got these on Amazon.
Okay.
So, and there's other ones out there which I've tried, because I've tried many of these over the years. Let me tell you, I've quite a collection here. But so far, this is my fave. The
Okay.
Atmosure is my favorite. It comes in this wonderful little case.
Uh-huh.
And it's helpful to use the case because these things are a little fragile if they're flopping around in your purse or whatever. And yeah,
That's a good type. They got a good name. I
they
like
got a good name.
it.
So anyway, that's another little trick that you can use, or hack, as they now say. It's another thing you can do to help, keep yourself safer from wireless radiation from
Mhm.
a cell phone. So yeah, I hope that's been helpful. Do you
It
have
is.
other
I
kinds of-
always like it's like one of those things when you're out like with feng shui or space clearing and that, and you just look at like where, the electric box is. And then it's on the other side and nobody paying attention to it, but the kid's always at the other end of the bed, or I mean, just all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that all is like, you could just do that, but this is you're carrying it with you. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's gotten so much more where if it's just that location in the house, you can deal with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a few other tricks that you can do
Mhm.
that can reduce the radiation, from your phone or your computer. Another thing you can do easily is to turn off Bluetooth.
Mhm.
And, I would say if you're not using Bluetooth, for sure, turn it off, because Bluetooth is a massive emitter. I mean, really intense radiation from Bluetooth. And,
He just said,
speaking of phones,
hey.
that's funny. So yeah, turn off Bluetooth on your phone, turn it off on your computer.
Mhm.
If you're not using it. If you do use Bluetooth, I mean, I just have to say, don't use it.
Yeah.
Bluetooth is super toxic. I mean, especially the Bluetooth, headsets. And don't even get me started about those earbud things,
Oh,
like
it
the
already, it looks
wireless.
like everybody, like they're just getting them ready for the transhumanist, the first stage.
Those things are just so toxic. And of course, if you use those wireless earbuds, it is basically shooting wireless toxic microwave radiation straight into your brain.
Wow.
Inside the ear canal, there's no protective skull, there's no protective tissue. It is just going straight into your brain. So please, use a wired headset, for heaven's sake,
Mhm.
not those wireless things. And, again, I do recommend the hollow tube wireless headsets. So turning off Bluetooth, also turning off Wi-Fi.
Mhm.
For example, on my phone, I mean, I use my cell phone when I'm traveling,
Mhm.
I don't use it if I'm just going to the store or whatever. I don't care. I don't have any urgent calls that I need to get.
Right.
But if I'm traveling, to the mainland or whatever, I live in Hawaii, I only ever use my phone with data. I don't.
I'll just
I don't use it with Wi-Fi.
yeah.
And so, it's another recommendation I would make, because it's a little bit less radiation when your phone is interacting with the tower or antenna that's far away than if your phone is interacting with a Wi-Fi router that is in your close proximity. Okay, so keeping the Wi-Fi off, keeping the Bluetooth off. And I also do recommend on the phone that you keep location services off.
I always keep that off.
Yeah.
Unless I really need it. Yeah.
Exactly. You can always turn it back on if you need to use your
Mhm.
map function or something else, but it's a good practice to just shut that stuff off when you're not using
Mhm.
it. And then you're not being tracked either. You're not being surveilled,
Right. Mhm.
and that's a good thing to protect your privacy.
Well, I think this was one of the most practical interviews we've done, because
Yay.
this is for everybody, and you just had so much good information. So I'm so happy we had this interview, and I have a lot of things I need to clean up here.
I can help you with that, Carol. And if I may, just in ending, can I direct people to my website?
Sure. That would be great. I was going to have you do a whole round.
Oh,
okay.
Okay. Well, my website is yourenergymatters.com.
Mhm.
And on there, I do have, some of these tips about protecting your vital body. And the other resource is safetechhawaii.com. And
Oh, okay.
that's a coalition that I founded here,
Mhm.
we serve all of the Hawaiian Islands. And there's a lot of resources on that website,
Mm.
safetechhawaii.com. We have a resources page there, and there's a
Mhm.
lot of different resources that you can find there. So those are the two websites that I'd like to share with you today. And of course, on my website, Your Energy Matters, I have a whole bunch of other stuff as well, because this is one little aspect of the work that I do, but
Yeah.
I also do work, with the emotional body, the mental body, the spiritual body, and so forth. But I'm really grateful for this opportunity, Carol, to meet you, because I'm a huge
Yeah. And then
and
this is a whole part of you because I see so much of the other side. So,
right, right. So
okay.
yeah, and I also will mention that on our Save Tech Hawaii website, we do have a couple of petitions there. And if any of your viewers want to sign the petitions, one is to stop 5G until it can be proven safe, and the other one is about smart meters, which is another
Right.
wireless radiation toxin surveillance device.
Mhm.
And you don't have to live in Hawaii to sign those petitions.
There's been a lot of successful smart meter ones, it seems, in different cities where people
Yes,
just got together, Yeah.
it's true. And we've had some success here,
Mhm.
in keeping smart meters at bay here, on the Hawaiian Islands as well. So anyway, thank you again. Such
Thank
a
you so
pleasure.
much. Okay, everyone, you've got work to do.
That's right.
Thank you, Deborah.
Protect yourselves.